So today's session, welcome, and we're going to have an emphasis on forward folding positions, forward bends. But let's do a bit of warm-up, advance of that, so our bodies are nicely warmed up. I have a quote that I came across, which I don't know whether it relates to forward bends or not, but it is a general bit of inspiration for yogis, and it comes from the yoga sage Patanjali, who's from a long time ago, about 3,000 years ago. And in his book of aphorisms, he says, "Any change into a new state of being is the result of the fullness of nature unfolding inherent potential. Any change into a new state of being is the result of the fullness of nature unfolding inherent potential." So I was trying to think of, I've read that a few times and had come up with a few different interpretations, but I noticed that when at the beginning of a yoga practice for myself, I come in one state of being, and by the end of the practice, I feel entirely differently in a positive direction. So I suppose in a very simple way, we can think about that influence of yoga in every practice that we do. So let's begin with standing position. So come onto your mats. And what I have in the way of props today is I was sitting on a bolster, that's handy, a yoga blanket, a couple of yoga blocks, if you have those, and also a chair and a strap. Well, that's just about everything, really. Let's take a really relaxed stance with your feet hip-width apart. Relax at the back of your knees. And then do a few swings. And as we move arms and torso, keep the knees relaxed, so you're taking any locking out of the equation. And this is really very gentle movements, which involves the spine, the neck. And if we bring the arms up a little bit further, bending the elbows, you might find you can get a little bit more swing there. And if you just change this in a simple way and look forward as you swing, it gives an entirely different feeling. So we're just looking straight ahead. And then some shoulder taps. We haven't mentioned breathing yet, but the breathing is just natural. And probably getting your breathing going a little bit more in the process. All right, and then let's bring the arms all the way down again and movement to a halt. And now that you've stopped, let's reset and take a position with right leg forward, left leg back, with a space between the tops of your thighs. You're still facing your device, your camera. All right, and then what happens if we do a little bit of that hip swinging again? And when you have one leg forward, one leg back, it's an asymmetrical position for standing. So you've got a little bit more challenge to keep your balance. And then let's bring the arms up at shoulder height so the dorsothoracic gets to rotate as well. And I'm still looking forward. And now you're breathing, let it be a little bit deeper to support a deeper movement. And then bringing the arms back down change your stance just slightly so that your legs are in a line. So one foot directly in front of the other. I think if your feet were close together, this is called tandem. So it's more of a balancing exercise. Then switch on those inner thigh muscles. And then let's continue what we were doing. And as a further challenge to your balance, allow your head to rotate, to follow the line of vision all the way looking back as well as forward. Beautiful. And then let's finish there and change legs. And now left leg forward, right leg back. A little separation between the tops of the thighs. And then arms up at shoulder height. And rotating. Keep the shoulders in a downward direction. They don't have to elevate here. And then releasing the arms down and just changing your stance. So the right foot's more directly behind the left foot. Still got that space between the legs. And then continuing. And observing your breath. As always, the breath is all important. Good. And then let's finish there. As you lower the arms, then step your feet together. And give your legs a little bit of a shake out. Good. And then let's take a right angle position at the wall. So come to stand facing a wall space there. And bring your hands out in front of you, just out from your ribs. And open your hands, press your palms into the wall, step back. And the right angle is at the hip crease. And allowing the spine to stretch. And a stretch through the beginning of the stretch at the back of the legs. Keep your head in line with your arms, with your upper arms. And pressing in. And pressing back. Keep the knees again off the lock. And to save your wrists from too much pressure, press the pads of your fingers. So just backs of your fingernails. Press there, press forward, press back. Good. And then take a little step in, release, pausing, relax your shoulders. Let's do that all over again. And stepping back. And as simple as this movement is, this is a real beginner's course, beginner's pose. Let's get a little bit more out of it. Make sure that the head lines up with the arms. And take time to feel a sense of whether your spine is straight or not. So we can't see the back of our body. But if you give a little bit of time to check in there, see if you can get a sense that the whole spine is in a straight line, flat as a table. And if it's not, are there any adjustments that you can make? So for me, I'm drawing the abdomen up into the body. And at this point, and even though my legs are slightly bent, I'm going to lift my sitting bones up towards the ceiling. And then take a step forward and inhale and come all the way up. Good. And away from the wall, take a kneeling position onto your mat. And balancing your weight between your hands and your knees. And initially, like you did just now at the wall, keeping your back relatively flat. Feel the area between the navel and the pubic bone, and tone that area and draw that up into the back body. Let's work with warming up the knees and the spine a little bit more. Bring your feet together and draw the hips back towards the heels. And exhale. Inhale, come forward, back where you were, all fours. And let's just go on and move into downward facing dog pose. Keep on moving and with the breath, and back to all fours kneeling, back to child's pose. And let's stay with that sequence, which is moderated by your breath. And if at all possible, allow the breath phase to start before you start the movement and to finish after you finish the movement. So the breath envelops the moving. And if you like, it works for you, then protract the breath a little bit more. Still working up the body. The very next time that you come into child's pose or forward virasana, your arms are forward, then bend your elbows, bring your elbows back towards your knees, and fold your hands and rest your head downwards. Relax across the top shoulder line. Let your shoulders just fall out. And just normal breathing. All right, and then let's exit from here from all fours kneeling, and then dog pose, and walk yourself forward, and then on an inhale, come all the way up, and all the way to standing. Let's work on a few poses with the chair. And before we do that, we'll do just a further warm-up with Uttanasana, standing forward fold position, and incorporating a rotation. So take up a block, so not quite ready for the chair yet. Take up a block, and then with a slight forward bend, take the block into one hand, your right hand, and place it on the mat in front of your right foot. So the block, how far forward? It's at a reach with your right arm straight. Leave your right hand onto your block. Then flex your knees slightly. Lift your sitting bones up towards the ceiling. And then feel you've just done a really nice movement in elongating the right side of your body. Keep your shoulders relaxed throughout. And then allow your head to drop forward. Feel that you're well supported in bending forward, that deep crease at the top of your hips, and then bring your left hand onto your right leg. Just wrap your left hand around the outside of the calf muscle there. And then flex your right elbow, flex your left elbow, and in a gentle manner, allow yourself to rotate slightly towards the right side, looking underneath your right arm. Feel strong support through the left foot and the right foot too. Good. Let's change, but first come all the way up. Flex your knees, knees right over your ankles. Inhale and come all the way up to standing. Second side, take up that block. Extend out the left arm. Place it where you're going to use it. And keep the left hand on top of the block. Reach your right hand right around. You've already started a fairly good rotation through the dorsal thoracic. And then flex your left elbow, flex your right elbow, and then allow that to increase your rotation to the left. So we've got two things happening. We've got a nice back leg stretch, a hamstring stretch, and also that turning through the dorsal thoracic. Finally, as you bend that right elbow, it's moving towards the floor, shoulder and elbow. And as you bend your left elbow, it's moving out to the side. We're going to do this in another pose a little bit later on that's a seated pose. And then unwinding and flex your knees and come up all the way with your arms relaxed and up to standing. We'll call that Parvita Uttanasana in Sanskrit. All right, now take up your chair. We're finally to the chair. And I'm going to place my chair parallel to the wall with this seat of the chair facing towards me, and take a blanket on the top of the chair. These are balancing poses and leg stretches at the same time. So we get twice as much value. Try on your leg stretch. So I'm going to start with my right leg and lift my right heel onto the top of the chair. Now that might be too high for you at this time. So we can modify by using a bolster, a cushion on the seat of the chair. So it'd be right heel onto the seat of the bolster, or even lower if you want to rest your heel onto the seat of the chair. I've been doing this week of practices with my leg in the higher position. So I'm getting a leg stretch and balancing on my left leg. My left foot is my weight-bearing foot. And then just practicing good posture. When you raise your right leg into this pose, which is called in Sanskrit Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, which is a huge mouthful. When you get your leg up like this, what happened was you lifted your hip, whatever position you're in, at the same time. So see if you can drop the right hip and square the hips. Good. And I'm sure by now that you're feeling a strong stretch at the back of the leg. I am. Keep the back leg flexed if you need to. The standing leg flexed if you need to, or straighten as we go along. Now I've been balancing with my hand onto the wall. So free of the wall, you might take the next step and bring your arms up parallel. And breathing. And then we're ready to finish and lowering the arms and lowering the leg. Good. Once you're standing on 2 feet again, relax, shoulders, diaphragm, belly muscles, and then let's go second side and left leg up. And this might be completely different than the first side, so make sure you've got your extra props. You can adapt as you need to. Once positioned, drop the left hip and square the frontal hips, and see how much or how little you want to straighten the standing leg. Finally, bring the arms up. If you're ready to do that, or keep your hands resting onto the raised leg or your hips. And in good posture, opening up the chest, breathing, and then releasing arms and that raised leg. Good. Take a moment to reset. And I'm going to turn 90 degrees. So my right side is facing the seat of the chair. And I'm going to bring the right leg up. In my old days of teaching, a long time ago, I used to say, bring the leg up at a right angle. That's probably not even possible for flexible people. So keep the leg out. Wherever you land is going to be right for you. And don't try to overly open through the hip. And then the supported leg, the right leg supported. We're going to rest the right hand onto the top of the right shin bone and open the body, the side body. So right palm facing up, left arm up towards the ceiling, and take a stretch out along the right leg as much as you like, or as much as your body will allow. Good. But keep your shoulders relaxed. You get so much more momentum out of the movement if your shoulders are relaxed. Good. And it's that simple. And coming up and lowering arms and then leg. All right, and then let's take second side there. And left leg is your you're turning at a right angle to the chair, seat of the chair, and bringing the left leg up. Good. And then getting your balance. Drop that left buttock, left hip. Rest your left hand on the top of the left leg, palm upwards. That way you're going to get a good shoulder opening. And then to continue your momentum in that lean out towards the left, bring your right arm up too. And stretch as much as you like, where your rhythm is guided by your breath. And follow the cadence of the breath on every breath. And then inhale and come up and release. And let's take one more position here. So, yes, facing the chair again, facing the seat of the chair. So we're not turned this time. Let's go back to what we did originally. So you're standing near to the chair, your left foot, your left leg is your balancing leg. Bring up your right leg. And then let's introduce a rotation here. So left hand onto your right leg, right hand onto your right hip. So turn to the right. And as you do that, the left side of your abdomen turning towards your right thigh. I'm right next to the wall, so I'm turning my chest towards the wall. And if you like, with your right elbow bent, place your right palm onto the wall, pressurize it, and then turn a little bit more. So pressing into your palm and turning from left to right. Keep the left thigh bone back, so that way it sits right underneath its hip. You might feel a little taller when you make that self-adjustment and looking to the right. And then looking over your left shoulder, chest high. And we're going to release, face your leg, and change sides. All right, and then we'll introduce that rotation, left leg elevated. right hand, left leg on the outside of your knee or your calf muscle. And then turning from right to left. The more that you do that, the more the right thigh bone will float forward. So we're not trying to square the hip so much, but more keeping the thigh bone underneath the hip. And then finally, I've had my hand down to my hip. I'm going to extend that arm out. And breathing. And then finally looking over your right shoulder and fold that hand in and release. Lovely. And I'm thinking, let's test our balance just that little bit more by using a block. So this time I've got my block and it's in the lowest position, flat. I'm going to stand my right heel up on the edge of the block. Someone said once, a yoga instructor, that when you're standing on a block, heel on your block, it's like high heel yoga. But it makes you work your balance more. I like it because it makes me feel like I'm long-legged. And then standing heel onto that block, bring your left heel up onto the chair position. Good. And as much as you can, standing up straight, and also drawing the thigh bone back once more. If your balance is steady here, bring the arms up. You've changed your center of gravity with the arms elevated, so you have to work your balance a little bit more. And make sure that you're breathing. Good. In the last part, you could try the last challenge here, bringing your hands down onto your leg and forward fold. All right. And then releasing and arms up again, folding down, and second side. Now, of course, you don't have to use the block on the second go-round here of that pose we did initially, but if you like, you've got your left heel up onto the block, your right leg up onto the chair. All right, I'm finding I'm steadier on my balance on this side. Sometimes one side learns from the other, and then once you're there, and if you like, if your body will allow it, arms extended. This is the Hasta part of the Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, your hands being Hastas. And then forward fold, if you like, taking that extra step. And then inhale, come up. And I'm really happy I have the wall next to me. Exhale, release. And both legs stepping off the block. And the chair is such a lovely prop here. Let's do a modified downward facing dog pose. Hands on the seat of the chair flat. Take your step back. In stepping back, my legs are not directly underneath my hips. They're back behind the line of my buttock bones. Good. And see how much you can get out of this pose by extending in two directions. Stretching to the tips of your fingers, and then that cross stretch through the spinal column back to your tailbone. Can you lift your buttock bones a little bit? Lift your tailbone. And then take gentle walk forward and come all the way up to standing. All right. I think at this time we could take a couple of, what will we do? Standing poses. Without the support of the chair. And take a position onto your mat. Let's plan ahead and keep a block handy. And then step out for the first standing pose, Trikonasana. Turn your feet to the right. And the right foot turned out 90 degrees, the left foot turned in a little bit. Let's use the block on these standing poses and place the block on the outside of your right leg, on the high end. It's a little bit behind my heel. And then having done that and set up, extend the arms out sideways. Good. And extend right to the tips of your fingers, but feel that the arms are well set into the shoulder joint. And then extend out over that right leg. As you do this, the right thigh's turning out, the left thigh, let it turn in, and bring your hand down onto the top of the block. If that height works for you, and the left arm up towards the ceiling. Good. And then let's intensify the stretch on the left side. Just make sure that the left foot is fully grounded. You can feel the whole left footprint and the right footprint too. And then as well as the stretch you're getting through your legs, let's work into the shoulders. Bring the right shoulder blade forward and roll the left side back. Beautiful. So feel strong support through your feet. Inhale and come up. And turn the feet all the way to the left. And replace your block where it's going to work best for you. You can keep your hand onto your shin if you don't want to use the block, that's fine. And arms out sideways. Good. So you're right in the middle now, your head, your shoulders, your trunk in the middle of the pelvis. Just pause there for a moment, stretch the tips of your fingers, feel the arms strong into the shoulder joint, and extend left over the left leg, and left hand down, right arm up. So Trikonasana, triangle pose for opening up the lateral body, and it does it in a beautiful way. So with a slight rotation and the left shoulder blade coming forward, the right side rolling back slightly. But your arm is directly, right arm directly above the right shoulder. And then releasing and coming up and feet forward and stepping right in. Right. And then Uttanasana, resting Uttanasana. Fold your arms so that you're holding your elbows. First extend the arms up and then come halfway towards the floor. I'm going to take my knees off the lock, which releases the hamstrings a little bit. And then halfway down, what's it like here if you lift your chest, lift your elbows a little bit, and strengthen your upper back muscles. And then finally, let's go to rest and dropping forward completely. Still holding my elbows, or your hands rest in the crease of your elbows.
Feel the weight of your arms, the weight of the back of your neck, your head. Take some deeper breaths there. Maybe you can feel the breath in the lower abdominal area, the energy of apana on every breath that you take. You've opened up the lateral body with the last pose, so feel you can release the side body down right to your elbows. And then finally drop your arms. Bend your knees over your ankles and roll up with your arms loose and head comes up last. Good. And then step out for Warrior Two pose. And arms out in line with your shoulders. Turn your feet to the right. Good. And then take the lunge. And as you do that, check it out. Your knee bone just directly above your ankle bone. And rolling out slightly, opening up that groin. Roll your shoulders down from your neck. And look straight down the right arm at the same time as you extend the left arm back. So stabilize through the sensation in your feet, your two footprints. Tone your right buttock, bring it slightly forward. Chest is high and light. And then change your direction and rotate your head to the left. Look left. And adjust your left arm as you need to. Often I drop that arm when I'm in this pose. And then looking straight forward, releasing from your lunge, and let's do a reset. Drop your arms, relax your shoulders. Turn your feet to the left. Good. Have a look at your foot placement, the heels in one line, and then re-stretch your arms. In the lunge, the left knee, I always like to observe, because sometimes, even though I've done this quite a few times, Virabhadrasana too, I'm out of position. So the knee directly above the ankle, and the thigh bone moving back into the hip. And similarly, the arms moving deep into the shoulder joint, and looking down that rather straight left arm. And then check out the right arm, turning your head to the right. Extend. And facing forward. Inhale and come up. Release. Feet to center. And stepping back into center. Good. Let's do Uttanasana again, but take the block for support this time. Step your feet hip width apart. Take your forward fold from the very topmost thigh. And release your hands to the top of the block. Nudge the block forward, so you're at a reach now. And then take a lean in towards the block, so your weight maybe just slightly overbalanced, but towards the forefoot and the metatarsals. And then drill in the heels as well, so the whole of the foot is active. And then release your shoulders back. And let's take Uttanasana with the head up slightly and lengthen the frontal body from the pubic bone all the way up to the jugular notch. Shoulders are back, chest coming forward. And then as you wish, tone the thigh muscles. And as we're going along and we've warmed up the body systematically, can you feel the knees drawn up, the front thigh muscles, the quadricep drawn up to the hips, and the tailbone lifting slightly too. And then we're going to release from concave back Uttanasana. Draw the block in towards you. Flex your knees. Inhale and come up to standing. All right, and then one last of the standing poses, Prasarita Padottanasana. So forward fold in a wide leg position. And stepping out and keep your feet facing directly forward. In fact, you could turn in a little bit more. I notice as I stay in this pose for some time that often my feet start to splay. So just allowing that in the very beginning, a slight more turn in. And then bring your hands to the crease of the hips and take your forward fold there. I still have my block in front of me, and I'm taking the forward bend from the tops of my thighs again. Navel lifting up. There's tone there in the abdomen. And then this time with the block right underneath your chest, bring your left hand onto the top of the block, your right hand onto your right hip. And then rotate to look to that right side from the left side of your body, from your left ribs, from your left shoulder blade. Draw the right shoulder back. Good. Release your right hand from your right hip and bring it onto the center chest, sort of the heart center area. And then see if you can create your turn from there, from the top front chest. Good. Anchor the left leg a little bit more through your left footprint. And then release back to center. So you're looking down, change hands. Left hand onto the left hip initially. As you turn to the right, sometimes it feels like your right leg is coming with you. So emphasize the right footprint again, turning away, right side to left. Good. And then bring the flat of your left hand onto your breastplate and turn from there a little more. Breathing evenly. And then release back to center. Let's change hands all over again. And right hand, right hip. You can take the next step, possibly be gentle on your shoulders and extend up your right arm. By all means, keep your right hand onto your right hip if that is a protection for your shoulders or your arm movement. Good. Strengthen that left leg again. And I'm turning from my left shoulder blade this time. Good. And then let's swap it over. And moving slow as we go into the turn to the left side. Press your right footprint again. And then lift the breastplate and see how that goes to extend up your left arm. Finally, you might get a little more out of this by turning your right shoulder blade to move in towards your right lung. And then all the way back to where you started. Take away the block by now, and in warming up your legs and warming up the hamstrings, if you can, have your hands down underneath your shoulders or begin to walk them back. Release the back of your neck all the way to the crown of your head. And then lift your tailbone. Lift the abdominal area up into your body so it's not collapsing there. All right, let's ease out of the pose. Walk your hands forward, come up onto your fingertips, and then shuffle your feet in. Toe, heel. Bend your knees to come up. Knees right over your ankles and all the way up to standing.
Okay, we've done some good work there. Let's take, let's see, some support to sit on here. We're going to go through a series of seated poses. So whatever works for you, a platform to sit on. I'm going to sit on a folded blanket. You might sit on a bolster. Have a block next to you and a yoga strap. Another one of these most basic beginner's course poses is Dandasana, with your legs straight out in front of you. And what you might do is reach under the very topmost thighs to the buttocks and draw the buttocks, the flesh of the buttocks back from the sitting bones. Nuzzle the sitting bones a little bit more into the mat. In hamstring stretches, if your hamstrings are tight or not thoroughly warmed up as yet, keep your knees bent in any of these forward stretches, and that's a fine self-adjustment to do. Otherwise, legs relatively straight. Bring your hands back behind you, and on your fingertips, lean back into your hands slightly. You're reclining. Legs are extending out, but you're leaning back, so you can draw the chest up, the shoulder blades in, the collarbones wide, and then bring the hands in a little closer to you and aiming for an upright spine, but not an uptight spine. And we'll move on to Janu Sirsasana, the first of these forward fold seated positions. Keep your left leg straight, bend your right knee out to the right side. And it pays to devote a little bit of time to setting yourself up here. So like I said, the left knee can be slightly bent, depending on your hamstrings at the moment. And then your right foot, keep it slightly out away from the left thigh. If your knee's elevated, take a block to the outside of the left knee. And having set up so well, let's move into the pose. And sitting upright, reach your right hand across to the outside of the left leg. Bring your left hand slightly behind you, and let's add a rotation. And I mentioned earlier that you did this in standing, turning, Parvita Uttanasana, the forward fold when you use the block to turn towards the standing leg. And then from here, press your palm, the flat of your palm against your leg, and bring yourself not so much downward, but up and outward, turning away from the bent leg. Good. And in that nice rotation that you've created, then don't lose that, but turn your head back to face your foot and bring your both hands onto your left leg. Ease slightly forward as you're able to, as your body will allow, and hold along your leg with the belt if you need to, or your hands onto your leg or your foot. Then bring back that intention again, lifting up and out of the pelvis. And we're ready for second side now. Upright and extend both legs. Dandasana first. And bend your left leg in. Good. Going through those movements again, that checklist, and your one side might be very different than the other. So here we are, we're seated with the left foot a little bit away from the right thigh, and then upright. Take your left hand across to the outside of your right leg. Your right hand back behind you a little bit. And because we're emphasizing turning and stretching on that left side a little bit more, do a check-in to the right thigh. Relax the left groin. Soften the left thigh. And then continuing in that rotation to the right side, turn the ribs, turn the chest, extend out and up. And then having established the rotation slightly in the line of the right leg, then reach your both hands onto the leg or onto your strap, onto your foot. Just for the last part, draw up from the very lowest part of your torso to your ribs and relax your shoulders. And then release there and extend out your left leg with your right, Dandasana. And let's take Marichyasana. There's a few of these poses, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not sure what number this is, but it doesn't matter. Bend your right leg and pull your right heel in towards your right buttock. And then just stamp that foot down well into the mat and wrap your hands around the front of the right shin bone or the front of the right knee. Then sit up nice and tall. Good. Then release your left hand alongside your left hip. Press your left hand down. Bring your right arm straight up towards the ceiling. Reach for the ceiling. Reach out, reach up. And then lean right across that left leg. As far as you can go there. And then we're going to open the right arm in front of the right leg, right knee, to the right side. Turn your thumb down, turn your whole arm in, your shoulder in, and bring your right hand back behind you. As you fold your elbow and bring your hand back behind you, at this point you might be able to release your left hand and reach around and hold your right hand. That's very dependent on your anatomy, what will be allowed there. And join your hands with your block if you prefer to do it that way. Then, once I've had my right side, my right leg in the bent leg position, my right buttock is lifted a little bit. Let me see if I can sit more fully onto both sitting bones again. And then finally, lifting up, lifting out, extending forward. And if you like, then take the forward fold and allow your head to drop towards your left leg. Marichyasana pose. And then inhale and come up, and happily releasing, extending that leg out, Dandasana. And we're working well here. Let's get to the second side. Pull the left heel in towards the left buttock. Get the sensation in your body, the body sense of sitting upright, holding at the front of the knee, extending the right leg out. And then release the right hand by your side. Bring the left arm first straight up towards the ceiling, working with the lateral body again, extending as much as you can, and then forward and out. Then as you lower that arm a little, bring the bicep in front of the left knee, palm facing out first, then thumb down, bend your elbow, and one side, as we say, might be radically different than the other. See what you can do here and bring that arm back, and then joining the hands behind you. Hopefully we've done a very good warm-up through the earlier part of the class, and you can reach the hands together
but also it's just fine to use the belt there. Use the belt. And once you're in that bound position, see if you can lift up the chest and create a sense of lightness again. So the top chest is buoyant. Looking out, you're more lined up with the right leg. And then happily releasing back to Dandasana. Both legs straight. Dandasana. And then let's take a reset break, lying on your back. Maybe even a mental health break if forward stretches aren't your thing. It's good to incorporate them, though, from time to time in your practice. So I'm going to take a lying down position and bend my knees in. As much as or as little as you like. So gradually bringing your thigh bones towards your ribs. And then, because we were doing a rounding of the back sometimes in those forward stretches, rest your hands onto the front of your knees, your patellas, one hand each knee. And as you draw your knees towards you, move your sitting bones towards the floor. So right at the bottom of your buttocks, instead of moving your buttocks towards the backs of your knees or lifting the buttocks, then go the other way, just to recreate a little bit more release through the lumbar arch. And then buttock bones towards the floor, thighs towards your ribs. And then with a little bit of movement. So straightening your arms, knees out, bending your elbows in, thighs in. Apanasana. A really great healing pose. Apanasana, working with the lower abdominal area. Deep breathing. But we need to continue. We have a few more seated poses to do. So once you release your feet back to the floor, roll to the side and help yourself back up to seated position on your folded blanket or cushion. For Upavista Konasana, for wide leg position. When I sit like this on my support, I find it better if I'm just sitting on a narrow edge of the blanket, so a little point of the blanket. If I rotate it, then it's more likely that my sitting bones will be supported and not so much the backs of my thighs. That works really well for me. And then the legs out into the splits. Now you've got the hamstrings to contend with, so do keep the knees bent if you need to. Let your common sense be your guide here. Bring your hands back behind you. And as we did in Dandasana, lean back into your hands. And then flex your feet. When your feet are in dorsiflexion like this, turn on your heels so you're on the very center of your heels. And then create a long line all the way out to your heel bones. And as well, feel the thigh bones well set into the hip socket. So I'm engaging my front thigh muscles, my quadriceps. And then bring your hands in nearer to you. See if you can rock a little forward to the front of your sitting bones. If you push your hands into the mat, your fingertips into the mat, do a lean out and come onto the front of the sitting bones. Beautiful. It's a powerful stretch. Let's bring the hands round in front of you. Read your body. If you can take a bit more forward fold from the very from the crease of your hips. That crease goes deeper into the hip fold, and then lead with the top chest. You can feel this as a strong back leg stretch, but even more so at the backs of my knees. So that must be where my tightness is. Take a walk in with your hands, and then happily releasing from the hamstring stretch. Lift the inside of your knees with your hands. Slide your feet in to each other. I'm going to sit squarely onto my support again. And just noticing the interesting changes that happen when your leg position changes. So as my legs are bent and heels close to my buttocks, I'm pitched back onto the tailbone, really, more than my sitting bones. So if I pull on my feet slightly and draw myself up to my full height, I've come forward a little. The compression is very strong through the knee joint. So I'm going to release some of that, and you might find this beneficial, is to bring your feet out away from the center pelvis. And I've gone far enough forward so that I have a right angle behind my knees. From this position, just resting my forearms onto my lower legs and leading with my breastbone. I've taken all the pressure off my knees, but there can be still a very good groin stretch here, and the thighs turning out. And you might find at some point, and even more than that outward direction, to fold forward, and the head comes forward, and the back is in complete flexion. It's a very humble pose. Padangusthasana forward. All right, and then finally releasing the legs out. Lift the knees from the outside, stretch the legs, Dandasana. And let's finish in this sequence with two poses. One is a lying down twist. So take your reclining position on your mat. And this one is a combination of a few movements. So take a wide stance. Your feet as wide or maybe just a tiny bit wider than your mat. And then your arms out from your shoulders, palms up. And then merely allow the knees to drop to the right side. I'm lifting my left buttock at the same time and looking to the left. Back in, lifting the knees and going in the opposite direction. Always of interest and curiosity to notice the difference between the two sides. And looking to the right. Where is there ease? Where is there restriction? Let's go one more time, each side. You've lifted your left buttock in taking the knees to the right. And then let's get a nice stretch all along the left side. Extend the left arm on the floor overhead alongside your left ear. And extend left knee away from your left arm away from your left ribs. And then fold that arm in and drop the knees to the right side. Right buttock is up. Extend your right arm alongside your right ear. And open up all along the right thigh, the right outer right hip. Stretch your knee away, stretch your arm away. And then fold like a bird folding its wings at night, your right arm in and knees up. And let's finish this sequence with legs up the wall for our inversion. So take a prop if you need to have your hips on at the wall. I'm going to use a bolster for that, or just have your buttocks flat on the floor, your torso flat when your legs are elevated. If you're using the prop, sometimes it's a little fiddly getting in, I find. So do a check once you've settled to see whether the legs are straight over the pelvis and there's a straight alignment from your pubic bone through the center of your chest to the crown of your head. Find your favored position for your arms. And maybe that's overhead, maybe out to the side, or maybe your hands rest or nuzzle in the upper abdomen. Just one more adjustment might be helpful, lifting your back chest a fraction off the floor, drawing your shoulders down, your shoulder blades down, and then resting your back entirely, including the back of your head. So interesting to notice the breathing pattern that without changing it or trying to control it in any way, the breathing pattern in inversions can be quite different than what we experience it normally. So not by effort of willpower, but just observe your own breath here. And the pose that you found yourself in, legs up the wall we call it commonly, or Viparita Karani, is actually a yoga mudra. It has a certain shape that suggests an energetic change in the body. So you might feel into that yourself. It's a really good pose to hold for a timing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I've done it for even longer than that. And benefits accrue, I think, with the timing. So now we're ready to move on. And first bend your legs down, lower your body down and slightly away from the wall. And in a moment, and slowly, slowly, coming up to a seated position to sit together here at the end of the session. And in coming to sit together, consolidating, you might close your eyes once more, bring your hands up in center chest position. And feeling into your body and connected with your breath. And then taking this time also to connect to the long lineage of yoga and all those people that have stepped down the practice of yoga to us over many years, and even back to that sage Patanjali, and all the influences that we've been exposed to through the education of yoga, secular and sacred. So taking the practice into us and now mentally extending it out to our Zoom community and to our wider community, into the wide world. We say namaste. Thank you.